Welcome to the SFB YouTube channel. I want to talk a little bit today about my history with the Cars, listening to the Cars, and how I got here today. In order to do that, we have to go back to 1978. I was in 6th grade. I belonged to the Columbia House Record and Tape Club. Like a lot of people I knew, it's one way we got music. Albums were delivered to your house every month. You could choose any record that you want, or they would provide an album of the month. And I ended up with the Cars. First album, I loved it. Loved every song, knew all the words, would take the album over to my friends' houses and we would listen to them. But I was 12. I didn't have a particularly sophisticated or developed sense of music yet. I just knew that I liked what I liked. I thought the guys looked cool. I loved looking on the album cover and on the album sleeve, and the guys were so exotic looking. And of course, Benjamin Orr was the best looking fellow. I thought he looked just supreme. Of course, as a 12-year-old boy crazy girl, rock stars were like gods. So I was quite taken with him when I was 12 years old. In 8th grade, 1979, Candy-O came out. I did not own that album, but I remember the Cars came to Buffalo on tour, and you could win tickets. The radio station 97 Rock had contests where you could call in and be like the 12th caller or the 15th caller and win concert tickets. So I begged my parents to please let me, and for some crazy reason they relented and let me call in to try to get tickets. I did not win. I'm sure they were very relieved because I can't believe my parents wanted to take 13-year-old me to a concert at the Odd in Buffalo. I wrote a little bit about this in one of my blog posts on WordPress, so you can check that out if you want to. But then high school, Panorama and Shake It Up came out. I remember Shake It Up being very, very popular. But I was listening to different things at the time. I was deep into the Beatles, very into the Doors, loved Jim Morrison. So the Cars were kind of not what I listened to, but they were always there, very popular on MTV. And then 1984, I was a senior in high school, and Heartbeat City came out, and it was just huge. Of course, Drive, Magic, you might think, all those songs were sort of the background music to the second half of my senior year of high school, into that summer and into fall of college. That, along with Prince's Purple Rain, very popular. Everybody loved Drive. Thought it was an okay song. I didn't love it. It really wasn't my thing. It wasn't what I was into at the time. So that's sort of my history of the Cars in the 1980s. Fast forward 40 years to about mid-February this year. It's about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep. So of course, what do you do when you can't sleep? You scroll through Instagram. So I'm scrolling, and all of a sudden, a reel appears in my feed from an account called, I think it was called Faces of Rock. And there was Benjamin Orr in all of his glory. Red top, black jacket, the black leather pants, that gorgeous blonde shag, the earring. I was dumbstruck. It was like a revelation. I mean, his beauty just shone, and the performance was amazing. It was a clip. It wasn't even the whole thing. It was a clip of him singing Just What I Needed from one of their appearances on the Midnight Special, and it just blew me away. So I saved it. And I don't usually save things on Instagram, except sometimes recipes that I never use, or workouts, which I do use. But it kind of shook me. And I love music. Music is a balm to me. It's a medicine. I feel like it's very healing to me. I love going to live music performances. I love the Grateful Dead. I love every iteration of the Grateful Dead, Dead and Company. I love like roots Americana kind of stuff. I love Willie Nelson, been to a couple outlaw music festivals, love Bonnie Raitt. I love just plain old rock and roll. I love Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, the Tragically Hip. I love Bruce Springsteen. Little Steven. In fact, the shirt is from the Teach Rock program that Little Steven sponsors for teachers. I went to one of the workshops a few years ago, actually in Cleveland. It was fantastic. If you're a teacher and you want to incorporate music into your curriculum, I recommend checking it out. But so I hadn't really given the cars a lot of thought in a long time until this reel appeared, and I saved it. But back up a little bit. A record store opened in my town, a little record store, and this was a couple of years ago. I wanted to give the owner some business, so I went in to look and see what they had, and I was perusing through the bins, and I came across that Cars first album that I had gotten rid of, and I decided that I was going to buy it for nostalgia's sake and listen to it. My husband had recently got me a record player, so I was back into buying vinyl. So I took it home and put it on and listened to it, and it sounded just as good as it did the first time I heard it when I was 12 years old. So I see this reel of Benjamin Orr in February, and I'm just beyond taken with him. And this has sort of opened up this kind of path or this new world to me. And I remember vaguely when he died in 2000, I remember being in the news. I don't think it was a big deal. I mean, I don't know where I heard it. I don't know if MTV was even a thing still in 2000, but I do remember thinking it was strange because I knew that he was not old. But I never really thought about it until I started doing research on this person. And this has kind of it's kind of become emotional for me. And I don't know why, but maybe it's because as I was reading, I realized that the last decade of his life was very different than the previous decade, where he had a band and he had fame and that phenomenal voice, and he was absolutely beautiful. And so that's why I feel compelled to create this YouTube channel and to write about this on my blog, because I just feel like I want to talk about it with other people who might understand and feel the same way about it. So anyway, I started researching, and I realized that I did not know that he grew up in Cleveland, and I live about 2.5 hours from Cleveland. And then I realized that he was buried a little bit closer to me in a small rural cemetery. And I just thought, how was this person who had such an amazing talent and was so famous buried in this kind of little cemetery in the middle of nowhere? And that sent me down this rabbit hole, again, reading, researching, listening. And I've discovered this whole musical catalog that I feel like I should have known existed, but I didn't know. And I've been listening to their pre-Cars stuff, their Captain Swing stuff. I'm listening to Ben's songs from when he was in the Grasshoppers, when he was a teenager in Cleveland. And it's been a revelation. And in re-listening to the Cars, I think it sounds fresh. They sound just as good now as they did back then. And I think if you presented a Cars song to someone who didn't know them or were unaware of them, I think that they would think it was new music. It still sounds that good. And I just feel like the Cars need more love today. And I feel like they need more love than just for their fabulous songs that were popular and that you hear on oldies radio. But there are so many songs that are just as good, if not better, like the deep cuts. That I wish were played more on alternative radio. I'm so glad they were finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018, and I feel like it should have happened sooner, but I'm glad they finally made it. And I know Elliot Easton is still out there playing, and so is Greg Hawkes, but I just feel like there's more to the story. There's a story behind the story behind the story, and I want to find out. I'm just intrigued with Ben Orr's life. He appears to be such an enigma. You know, I've been reading about how he really struggled after the end of the Cars. And he put some things together. He was in a couple bands. He started the Orr Band, and he was in Voices of Classic Rock. And then just when it seemed like the next chapter was finally going to happen for him with big people, he got sick and died. And I just feel like it's tragic. And I guess I wish I had known about this before, but I didn't. So that's what I'm on the journey to try to find out, who Ben Orr was, who he is, and the Cars story. Like I said, I've done a lot of reading. Joe Milliken's book, Let's Go, is very helpful in learning more about Ben Orr. And Donna Neal, who goes by Sweet Purple June, she's done exhaustive research, totally jealous of her and all the things that she's done, the people she's interviewed, all the contacts she has, all the time that she's put in to her blog and her website. But if you are a Ben Orr fan, you probably already know all about her. I guess I seem to be the last person to the Ben Orr party. So anyway, this little venture of mine is just to do some things that, I know other people have done and probably done better than I, but I just really want to be part of the conversation. I know I'm not breaking any new ground, but I'm really digging, looking into and learning and reading about all this stuff. So that's a little bit of background about why I'm doing this and how this came to be. If you want to continue listening to me blab on about the cars and Benjamin Orr, I'm happy to have you here. If you want to continue on the journey with me, that'd be great. If you want to add anything to it, I'm always looking for anybody who can give me information and insight, and I would really appreciate it. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching.